Well, hey, everybody. I am here with Rachel Phillips and so glad to be here. Welcome, Rachel.
Hello, Jill.
Glad you could make it here on the Zoom camera.
Yes, all the way to my living room.
Can't be right next to each other, but we can be face to face in another way. So good of you to come and share with us this morning, because I know that what you have to say will be an encouragement to everybody, not just people who have been through miscarriage, but especially people who have been through this particular kind of crisis. So let's just start off, if you don't mind. Just tell us your story so we can get to know you and that a little better.
Sure. Well, I think like most people who plan and want to have kids, I just always assumed I would, and that it would just be easy and simple. I don't know, like it just never, I obviously had heard of miscarriages and infertility and secondary, actually, I don't know if I had heard of secondary infertility at that age, but I don't know, that was something that happened to other people, like all crises, right? And so when we decided that it was time, my husband, Greg, and I were ready to start the whole family thing, and just figured it would fall into place and be so simple. And it so wasn't. And it was just a shock to the system on every level. But the first time that we got pregnant, just a joy, and you're so excited and scared and confused and all those things. But and I remember we went to the first 8-week appointment, and everything seemed cool. And so then it was like, let's tell everybody, because you're so excited.
Right.
Told the parents and told the friends. And I was working as a youth minister at the time. I remember I played this weird, dorky game of charades to tell the youth. And if you ever have an announcement to make it in front of a room of teenagers. Like, they're the best announcement receivers. They literally cheer, and it's fantastic. And I was in seminary at the time, and told all my folks there. And 2 weeks later, I started spotting, and they tell you that's pretty normal and it happens and blah, blah, blah. And you just want it to be normal. And so you tell yourself it is. But I think I knew from the beginning that it wasn't. I don't know, just like that weird, nah, this isn't normal.
Mm-hmm.
I remember calling the doctor, and of course you don't ever get the doctor, you get someone else. And they were like, gotta love them. Well, it's either fine, or if it's not, there's nothing we can do anyway. I'm like, well, here, thank you, ma'am. Thank you for that beautiful moment. And so it continued and started to have some cramping. So went in, and then they do the ultrasound, and they're like, yeah, it's not okay. You've lost the baby. And I kind of felt like I knew that going in, but just such a kick. And your brain just goes numb almost, at least it did for me, because now what? And there was nothing to do. I mean, she was right. As much as I kind of hated what she said, she was 100% right. Like, there was nothing they could do. They just said, it looks like everything's going to happen naturally, so just go home and you'll be fine. And I just wanted there to be something. I don't know what I wanted to happen, but I thought there should be something, and there wasn't. And I think that was, in some ways, the weirdest and hardest part, was there was literally nothing to do. The analogy I sometimes think of is, those magicians who will like have a tablecloth with a really fancy table, all the candlesticks and china, and they just whoosh, whip the tablecloth, and everything shakes for like a second, and then it looks like perfect. Mm-hmm. And I thought that was like my life, basically, because everything on the outside looked exactly the same. There was like a quick trimmer, and everything looked fine, but I'm the tablecloth and the ball in the corner, like,
Wow.
because there's everything's normal except nothing's normal. And physically I was okay. And they just, but there's no picture, there's no memento, there's no funeral, there's no nothing to do to get you through that week of, how do I handle this? How do I feel? How do I tell everybody? And it was a very numb and confusing time. But everyone just tells you it's probably just a fluke. It happens to a lot of people. And so you don't need to worry. What you've done is proven that you can get pregnant, which I always think is a weird truth, but like, okay, great. And just try again. Just when you're ready, try again. So we did. And you know what? It worked. The second time we got this beautiful girl named Kira, who's now 17. And, but she was, her pregnancy went super smoothly, and she was healthy. And so I just said, you know what, that was a horrible, terrible thing, but it's happened and it's over. And, here's this beautiful thing, and it's time just to move on. And I kind of tried to just do what everyone told me to do, which is, let it be a fluke, let it be a thing. Don't stress about it. My doctor she had good advice. She said, don't let that experience ruin this experience, my second pregnancy with Kira. And she's like, don't, you don't always be worried about the other shoe that's going to fall or whatever. Just try to enjoy this, which was really wise. But, after when Kira was about 2, we decided she ought to have a sister or a brother. And so we started trying again, and it took us a little longer to get pregnant that time. And it was, I don't know, in some ways much more shocking to me the second go around, because we lost that baby at about 8.5 weeks. And whereas the first time I was just like numb and kind of dumbstruck and couldn't believe it all, this time I wanted someone to explain it to me. Like, I wanted details. Well, why is this happening? How did this happen? What did I do? Did I drink too much caffeine? Did I wanted all the answers. I started reading everything, looking into everything. And no one could give me any answers. And the doctors still said, oh, it's probably just a fluke. It's probably just, obviously you have this perfect, healthy child. So don't worry about it. Thanks.
Right.
And just, it's hard to even describe the second one. I was just so fixated on fixing the problem, I think. I just wanted there to be a solution. And so we wasted no time trying again. I sort of had gotten a little bit older, and I was starting to worry that I was going to run out of time. Suddenly it hit me that, oh, maybe this is not going to happen. Eventually we did get pregnant again. And then when I lost the third child, that was the one that did it. That unraveled me.
Had you told people that you were pregnant that third time?
Yes, that's a good point. The second one, we told people with Kira, obviously, eventually, because it became obvious. But with my second miscarriage, we hadn't told anyone but our parents. And so I think that added to, like, how do you tell people that you've had a miscarriage when they didn't know you were pregnant? You don't. Right. So you walk around acting like you're fine, holding this all in. You miss one day of work maybe, and then you just go back, because what are you going to say? the third time we had told people. And I remember, since I worked at a church, it's funny, like all these things tended to happen at church. And it really felt like a slap in the face. And I don't know who I think slapped me, but I told the youth one morning that I was expecting. And about an hour later at church, I started to spot. And I just knew right away. And I was so mad. And that is the emotion that I think was overwhelming with the third loss. Is I had tried the whole, this happens to a lot of people. You just need to accept it and not worry about it. I tried to micromanage it and control every, what's the answer? What's the right group of vitamins I need to take? This time, I was just ticked off and I was tired and very angry, very, very angry. I was angry at God and I was angry at my body. And I was just so jealous of everyone with their healthy babies and their big pregnant bellies. And my friends, because you're at that age where everyone's having babies all the time. And not that it's not a good look, but at the same time, to be honest, I just couldn't stand it. I couldn't stand to look at them. And I would compare their life to my life. And I would be like, well, what's so great about them that they get to do this and I don't? Just really bitter. And I remember I had to have a DNC procedure that time. And when you go to the hospital, they call it an abortion because that's a medical term, and it's become this very obviously political term and everything. But I'm just laying there and they kept referring to it as an abortion. And not to get political about that, but I was just like, this is a very wanted child, and just being angry at just angry at all of it, and really not knowing how to get out of it, how to get out of that mode of being angry at everyone and everything all the time.
Was there any, and your answer might well be no, was there any joy to be had while you were in the middle of all this?
At first, I think I did better, or whatever you want to say with that. And Kira, my daughter, was, I would say, a definite joy. It was a light to be had in the middle of that. But I will say with the third experience, there was a period there where there really was not.
Right.
And it was very all-consuming. And here I am, I'm working at a church, and it's my job to tell everyone about the hope and love of Jesus. And I believed in it. I just didn't want to talk about it anymore, and I'm standing up there and having to say something that I know is true intellectually, but I no longer have any personal joy about it.
Right.
Because I was so mad. And the theology is horrible here, but I literally work for you, God. I show up every day. I follow the rules. My husband and I try to be good Christians, and what else can we do? And I remember just thinking, you're the one, if I'm, as a believer, I believe that God grants and gives life. And I was like, so you're giving me this pregnancy, and then I don't think God caused the miscarriage, but he allowed it to happen. So you're giving it and you're taking it away. And why are you yanking my chain?
Right.
Like, that's what I felt. I felt like God was playing with me, like just batting me around, like just go ahead and just don't give me any more children. Okay, I'll have one and she'll be a blessing and we'll move on. Like, why do you keep giving this and taking this away? And it's cruel. It just felt cruel. And I actually stepped away from my position as a student minister, not completely because of that, but it was part of it.
Mm-hmm.
We had always said that when I had the second child, I was going to probably step down for a while just to kind of focus on young kids, and realized that maybe I wasn't ever going to have a second child, and that I wanted to go ahead and step down to be with my first. But if I'm honest, that part of it was also that it was very hard to do.
Mm-hmm.
At that point, it was very hard for me to go in and be joyful,
Right.
and to focus on the positive and to encourage other people to worship and sing and pray, all these things that I knew I should do, and still believed in, but had a hard time doing.
Right. In the middle of it.
In the middle of
How
all that. Yeah.
was your grieving process different from your husband's? Because I've talked to a lot of people who say, whether it's the man woman thing or as you have said, a personality thing. So was it different for the two of you?
Yes. My husband is a very internal thinker. He's very compartmental. And so if he's at work, he's at 100% at work. And if he's cutting the grass, he is 100% cutting the grass. And just other things don't muddy the water, like he's very, and I am a soup. Like, it is all in there at the same time. And it was tough. It was tough. I remember at some points feeling like, does he not care? Does it not bother him? Does it only bother him because it bothers me? I mean, he's a very sweet man and very gentle man, and was always very tender with me. But it's like, because I'm a great person, I wanted him to suffer as much as I did. I wanted to see him struggle like I did, and it made me angry, because that's where I was, that he didn't seem to struggle. And then over time, I kind of realized that he did in his own way. He was just much quieter. And he felt like he didn't want to add to my struggle with his struggle.
Mm-hmm.
So in his mind, he's, kind of protecting me from that. And I was like, no, I want to hear it. Like, I want
Right.
to, and it took time to understand each other more in that way.
Right.
But yeah, he very, very different process for him. And he felt like it was his job, I think, to very much be the rock and to be the steady person. Yeah.
Which can be a good thing, and it can be a not so good thing.
Right.
I'm
Yeah.
guessing.
For him and for me, I would say,
So how did you navigate through that anger? Was it just time? Did you just wait? You said you stepped back.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, how did you travel that road and end up on another side?
Yeah, I think a lot of it was time. And they did eventually do some testing on me. They found out I have something, it's a name that sounds much worse than it is, antiphospholipid antibody syndrome.
Wow, spell that.
I cannot. And so if you take a blood thinner while you're pregnant, it's a clotting disorder, basically, which is why I continue to lose the pregnancies. But they said if you take blood thinner, it should stop that from happening. And so 5 years after Kira was born, Ian was born. And he is a crazy, wonderful kid. And he is definitely worth the wait. But, I think not to say that just having another baby fixes it, because that's not
Right.
what fixes it at all, I don't think. But I think to some degree, having some understanding of what went on helped. I think time is a big help. And I think just kind of, it's such a cliche to say doing the work. I kind of hate that phrase, but just sort of instead of running away from it, to dive into it and say, okay, I am angry. And instead of having all this on the inside and then going out to the world and presenting this very different thing, just saying it's okay. It's okay to say you're angry, and it's okay to admit that and to talk about that, to talk in general, because you won't believe how many people who had miscarriages that I didn't know had them came up to me, and like 90% of them whispered it. And I just found that was so interesting. They'd be like, me too. That happened to me. And it was so precious in a way that they were willing to share that with me. But also I was like, why are we all whispering? Like, what? You didn't do something wrong. You didn't commit a crime. But it's just something that we don't talk about very much, because I think it is this sort of invisible experience to the outside world. Right. And so the conversation isn't forced upon people. And so it's just easy for people not to talk about. Right. So just living it a little more out loud, being open with it and trying to tell people about it and talk about it and deal with the feelings was a big help.
What should people, oh, go ahead.
I think also, like, getting to this point where a couple things I realized. One is that you should let yourself feel all the feelings, but not all the feelings are bad, right? Like, if you're going to let yourself feel all the feelings, you should allow yourself to feel happy sometimes. And you don't owe your tragedy anything. Like, you don't owe it like this devotion of sadness that you have to. You're not betraying or belittling your experience by going out and having a good time, or by being happy. It's not, you don't owe it anything. I guess that's a phrase that meant something to me. It's like, I remember these babies in my own way. I remember, not for all of them, but my first miscarriage was on February 2nd, and my due date for that baby was August 31st. Like, I remember them, but that remembering them doesn't mean I have to live in this sad way as like a constant vigil. Like, that doesn't honor them. I think me going and living life and having joy, that honors them. Right. And it doesn't make me more noble or smarter or to just like be down and depressed all the time. I don't know. I think sometimes we think happiness is naive and silly, and I think it's the opposite. I think joy is brave and intelligent and good. Like, it's not this silly Pollyanna thing. It's a wise choice,
Did you find that you almost felt guilty when you would find something to laugh at or kind of have a good time? Or
sometimes, yeah, like I'm supposed to be in this, mourning mother mode all the time, right? And there's a phrase which I really don't like for lots of reasons, but it says a mother is only as happy as her saddest child.
I've heard that.
I hate that. I hate that phrase. So if you have a very sad child, or if you have a child that has passed away, or a child that never came to be, what does that mean for you? Like, are you supposed to just be over? And how does that help anything? How does that help anyone?
Right.
To me, that is such a lie that we've bought into, that a mother is supposed to just remain in this deep, dark sadness over a loss of a child, or a tragedy with a child. It doesn't mean that there's not an element of that is carried. I'm not trying to say that. And it's okay. It's okay to have that for as long as you have that. But it's also okay to laugh and to be happy and to seek out life and joy and meaning and purpose. That's okay too.
Right.
You get to feel all the feelings. You're allowed to feel all of them. You don't have to, just pick a camp and stay in it. You can go back and forth.
What did you find therapeutic for you on the other side of the miscarriage?
For me, I'm more of an extrovert type person. So being in relationship with people, being around folks was important for me. When I was in that really angry spot, I was isolating more, and that just, it was a circle. It made it worse and made it worse. Writing is something that I like to do. Lots of times it doesn't see the light of day. I am one of the 3 people in America that still writes poetry. It's terrible. It's terrible poetry. But
Now.
I write it anyway, for me. And I, that was therapeutic. And then, getting somewhere back again with God that was a little more real and less like a fake it till you make it sort of relationship that I kind of had for a while there. And just allowing there to be peace with him. And because I got to this point. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, did time take care of that, or what got you there?
I don't know exactly. Like, there wasn't an epiphany. There wasn't some huge moment. But I think it was me kind of going, okay, you know what? I want answers, but what answer can God give me that is going to make it okay? I couldn't think of one. Couldn't think of anything that God was going to be like, well, the reason I allowed all this to happen is X, Y, and Z, and blah, blah, blah. And then I would be like, oh, well, then sure, no problem. There wasn't any answer for that. And so it was just about saying, okay, you know what? I'm going to choose peace instead of constantly seeking the why. And I am an overthinker from day one. I have always had that problem, but there had to be a choice to say, you know what? I don't think I'm ever going to fully understand why this all happened, but I'm going to choose to be okay with that. Because I don't think there is a why that would make me okay with what happened.
Right.
So I can choose to stay here and just stay in this very sad, angry, bitter place. Or I can choose to look up and see that that's not all there is. Right. It's real, but it's not all there is. There is beauty, there is joy, there is these 2 beautiful children that I do have. There is my marriage, which wasn't and isn't perfect, but it's good. And there is, sunshine and ice cream with chocolate in it. And, birds that sing and all that stuff. I mean, it's all there. And so just to allow myself to say, there's good and it is good and it can be good, even though this other is very real.
Right alongside.
Yeah.
They can walk hand in hand.
Because I feel like we think happiness is like this destination point. And I think in Christian circles, especially, we talk about like, oh, are you on the mountain or are you in the valley? You know, and I'm like, we're all just walking back and forth
Right.
between the mountain and I mean, you ever seen mountains? It's not like one and the other. It's like,
Right.
I mean, it's
Right.
mountain range and we're all walking. And so instead of being so fixated on being on the mountain and getting to the mountain, it's like, just enjoy the walk. Enjoy the walk, because you're going to go up and you're going to go down and you're going to spend time in mountains and valleys, but you're going to spend most of the time like in the middle, on the hillside. So enjoy that, enjoy walking and enjoy the view, and don't pitch a tent because you're going to keep moving, you know, like you don't get to stay anywhere. You don't get
Oh
to stay
gosh.
anywhere. And that's, you know, that's good news in the valley and that's bad news on the mountain, but it's the truth either way. So
It's news.
it's the news. It's all the news that's fit to print. So you're gonna keep moving from place to place. So learn to enjoy the walk, right?
Right. Exactly. Well, for people who have never been through this particular experience, people who haven't had a miscarriage but care about someone
Mhm.
who has had one, what um what are some things not to do, not to say? What is not helpful? I always think that's a much more interesting angle than what can we do, which is, I don't know, but what I'm sure people did things unintentionally that were not helpful. So educate all the rest of us.
Um, yes, you really try to see people's heart past what comes out of their mouth. And sometimes it's harder than others. I would say, and this is probably true of almost any tragedy, but with miscarriage, I think there's a big compulsion to this. Avoid any sentence that starts with at least.
Mm.
Oh, if it starts with at least, it's probably going in a bad
Down.
direction. Because people are like, you know, at least you can have another child. At least, you know, you can get pregnant. At least the baby didn't suffer. At least, you know, and I'm like, these are true things. But what it feels like is you're making a big deal out of nothing. Move on.
Mm-hmm.
And I think with miscarriage, especially because, you know, I don't know if they were boys or girls. I don't know what color their eyes were. I didn't get to hold them or name them. And that's hard. And so in some ways, the fear is that it doesn't matter. Like there's a part of you that like, that's the heartbreak, is that there's all this grief, but there's very little place to put it.
Mm.
And when someone comes at you with at least this and, you know, at least that, I remember there was another person that I knew at the time who had a child with profound disabilities. And one of my friends was like, you know, it's a blessing because at least you don't have to do all that. God probably knew that your child would have been, you know, and I know their heart was good, but I was just like, I'm going to have to walk away from this person right
Now.
now before I say things, because I was like, how dismissive of the child with disabilities, as if their life has no meaning or purpose, of the fact that I would choose to not be a mother as opposed to mother someone that had disability. You know, I mean, it was just,
Right.
they meant to be encouraging, but any at least statement where you're, because what you're doing there is you're comparing pain.
Mm.
And it's pain's incomparable. The pain that the person has is the one they're dealing with, and comparing the fact that it could be worse doesn't help them. The flip side, I would say, is pretending like it never happened. It's a very easy thing to do with miscarriage, because you don't have memories and photos and all those sorts of things. And so a lot of people just want to kind of brush it under the rug like it never happened. And
Right.
they never refer to it again. They never refer to that pregnancy, that child, that situation. And that's painful. That's a painful thing, to just have it be dismissed as if it wasn't real, and as if the child wasn't real and your hurt isn't real.
Right.
Um, yeah, I
Do
would
you
say
think,
those are the two.
do you think people are afraid they'll make you sad if
Yes,
they acknowledge, I'm so sorry?
yes.
Um,
I think that's true. I think people don't want to hurt you, because people, I mean, most people are kind, and they
mhm,
mean well, and they don't want to bring up sad things, right? They don't want
right.
to make you cry. And I think in general, if someone's gone through something terrible, they're already sad. You aren't going to make them sad. They're already
Mm,
there, right? And so just release yourself from that worry, because they are sad about it. If someone you know has a miscarriage, they're sad about it. They are. And if you kind of, tap into the well, the water was already there, right? So if they start crying, those tears were already there. You didn't cause them. But them knowing now that you're a person that will listen, and that you're a person that remembers, you know,
right.
that is huge. That is huge. Um,
So would you say that writing somebody a note, or I don't know what helps the most, and everybody's a little bit different, but somebody who's been through this, should you write them a little note? Should you come up to them and hug them, or does that just that might make you cry even, but
yeah,
I
it's
don't know.
hard. And that's the thing. Like, I always sort of struggle, like our culture loves to have a list of 10 things that you do or don't do, right? And I feel like it's so hard because everyone's very individual. I do
Hmm.
think it depends on your relationship, obviously, how well you know that person. Have you ever hugged them before? Maybe this isn't the first, right? Like, you know,
That's a good point.
I'm sorry, like, maybe not. But if this is a person that you have hugged frequently, like, don't stop suddenly. Don't, if you call them all the time, don't not call them for 6 weeks because they're sad, you know.
Right.
Um, a note is always, to me, a great thing, because the person gets it and reads it on their own terms,
Hmm.
in their own time. Um, I think a simple thing of, choosing your time wisely, obviously, like not right before some big moment in their life where they've got to hold it together, but just letting them know, I'm here for you if and when you ever want to talk about things.
Hmm.
And kind of, um, and I'm
There's a
here
Oh, go ahead.
if you want to talk about it, or if you want to not talk about it.
Mm.
Because sometimes, you want to go talk about something else
Hmm.
and get your head out of that. But sometimes you want to kind of dive in, um, and listening, I think is the key, because it is something you feel like you don't want to bring up a lot, because it
Right.
makes people uncomfortable. And especially if not a lot of people knew that you were pregnant, then there's not a lot of people to talk to about it. So um, just being there and saying, I'm here, I'll listen, and giving them the space to do that, giving them some
Right.
opportunities to do that, but not pushing, you know, but just saying, I'm available.
Okay.
Let's get coffee and we'll talk about whatever you want to talk about, you know, and then kind of letting them set the tone, maybe,
Drive
when
the
they're
bus.
ready.
Yeah. Okay. Good advice. And so helpful, because I don't know of anybody. I know plenty of people who've been through this experience, but nobody's said, here's how you can help me.
Mm-hmm.
Here's how you can help me. So that is awesome. Well, I just have a couple more questions, quick questions to ask you. Um, Now that you're on the other side, because your son, your youngest, is
He will
9.
be 12 in
No,
a
no,
few
he's
weeks.
not. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
12 years old. So it's been a while. It's been a while.
Yeah.
I'm guessing though, this experience is still, it's woven itself into the fabric of, as corny as that sounds, of who you are.
Mhm.
So how do you find joy on this side of that, now that you're different than you were on the other side?
I think, everything lives like together, right? And so the contrast of dark and light is how you see light. You turn on a flashlight in a well-lit room and you don't see a thing. You turn on a flashlight in a dark room and it's all you can see. And so I've tried to, it is sad. And there are still weird moments. I mean, I'll be honest, it has been a long time, and I will go for a long time without thinking about it at all. But
Right.
then it will just pop up in the strangest of times. Like it hit me not that long ago that if that first child had lived, they would be graduating this year from high school. And that just sort of hit me one day, like, oh, there it is, But what I try to do is like, that is the dark that makes the light shine brighter. When I get to see my children that I do have, I still work with teenagers at church, and I get to see the joy in their lives and the way they're growing, and God is using and shaping them. And I appreciate it, I think, more than I would. I appreciate little moments more than I would had I not lost along the way. And when things are hard, there is a truth that when you live through hard things, you learn that you can live through hard things, and this year's been hard for everybody, I'd say, right? I don't think there's anyone who got out of 2020, 2021 clean and easy. So,
Right.
But there is a thing that I've learned that I can live through hard things, and that there's always something else. There's always another side. There's a valley, but there's another mountain. Right. They come in waves, right? And so just trusting that there is always that other joy. There's always that other thing. And just to be looking for it. And how important it is to take it when it comes, right? Right. Don't miss it. Don't lose it. Pay attention. Exactly. And so and I am not always good at that. Don't get me wrong. Like, this is not the wise sage telling you how I do it. Like, this is what I know to be true. And then sometimes
there you go.
I carefully ignore that and sit there and wallow in my pity like anyone else, but hopefully I get out faster now than I used to. And because I do believe that, I really, really do, that there is always good to come. Right. And just be ready, be on the lookout for it.
Awesome. Thank you so much for all this wisdom and all your honesty, because I think anybody who's been through a crisis needs to feel that they are seen and acknowledged and validated in whatever you're feeling. It doesn't have to be just miscarriage, but miscarriage is what we're talking about today and try to navigate. So I thank you so much, Rachel, for coming on, and we will hopefully a lot of people will listen, and they too will be encouraged. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, I just ended it. Now, what do it says recording. Oh.